The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It drummed against the roof of Maggie's diner like an impatient guest, echoing through the half-empty place. Inside, the air smelled of fresh coffee, bacon grease, and quiet exhaustion. Jack Miller sat in his usual booth by the window, his 8-year-old daughter Lily across from him, drawing something on a napkin with a red crayon. Jack was a former Marine, the kind of man who carried his past not in his words, but in the stillness of his eyes. He'd been coming here every Friday night since his wife passed 3 years ago. It wasn't about the food. It was about routine. Something simple, predictable, something Lily could hold on to. "Refill, Jack?" asked Sarah, the young waitress with a ponytail and tired smile. She'd been working doubles for weeks to help pay for her mom's medical bills. "Sure, thanks, Sarah," Jack replied, offering the kind of gentle smile he reserved for people who were clearly fighting their own battles. Then the bell above the door jingled, sharp, loud, like a warning. A man in his 40s stomped in, soaked and scowling. He was big, red-faced, the kind of guy who thought volume was power. His name tag from the local construction site still hung crooked on his vest. He slumped into a stool at the counter, barking, "Coffee. Black. And make it quick." Sarah nodded politely and poured his drink. But as she set it down, the man snarled, "Took you long enough." His hand shot out, knocking the cup off the counter. Scalding coffee splattered across her apron. "Sarai." Before she could finish, his hand came up, and smack, the sound cracked through the diner. Sarah stumbled back, stunned, tears filling her eyes. The whole diner froze, even the rain seemed to stop. Lily gasped, clutching her crayon. "Daddy," she whispered. Jack didn't move right away. He just looked at the man, long, silent, unreadable. He'd seen violence before, but this wasn't a battlefield. This was cruelty, and that was something he never tolerated. Jack stood up slowly, wiping his hands with a napkin, calm as a quiet storm. He walked to the counter, his boots steady against the linoleum. "Apologize to her," he said quietly. The man snorted. "Who the hell are you?" Jack's voice stayed level. "Someone teaching his daughter what respect looks like." The man laughed, shoving off the stool. "You want to be a hero, tough guy?" Jack didn't respond. He just took one step closer. Close enough for the bully to see the calm fire behind his eyes, a Marine's stare. The man swung first, a sloppy, angry punch. Jack caught his wrist midair, twisted it gently but firmly until the man grunted in pain. With one motion, he guided him down to his knees, not out of rage but control. "Enough," Jack said softly. "You ever raise your hand to a woman again, you'll remember this moment." The man's face went red. He yanked free and stumbled out the door, muttering curses into the rain. Jack turned to Sarah, who was shaking. "You okay?" She nodded, wiping her tears. "Why, yeah, thank you." Jack smiled faintly. "Don't thank me. You didn't deserve that." He turned back to Lily, who was staring at him with wide eyes. "Daddy, you were like a superhero." He chuckled. "No, honey. I just did what anyone should do." But Sarah knew. Not everyone would have done that. She went home that night with a bruise on her cheek, but a little more hope in her heart. And the next morning, when she checked her locker at work, there was an envelope taped inside. No name, just her name written in a child's handwriting, Miss Sarah. Inside was a crayon drawing, a stick figure girl smiling beside a man in a green uniform, both standing under a bright sun. Beneath it, Lily had written, tears rolled down Sarah's face as she pinned the drawing above her bed. And that was the thing about kindness. It didn't shout, didn't need applause. It just echoed, from one act of courage to a small girl's heart, to a tired waitress who remembered that good people still existed, because sometimes the quietest heroes sit in corner booths just waiting for a reason to stand up. The night after the incident, Maggie's diner was unusually quiet. The regulars whispered about what had happened, about the man who hit Sarah and the calm stranger who stopped him like it was nothing. But for Sarah, the bruise on her cheek wasn't the part that hurt most. It was the humiliation, the feeling of being small, powerless. She'd dealt with rude customers before, but no one had ever hit her. That moment replayed in her head again and again, until she remembered Jack's words. "You didn't deserve that." There was something healing about that sentence. It was simple, but it reminded her of something she'd forgotten. Her worth. The next morning, Sarah was back at work. She thought about calling in sick, but she didn't want fear to win. So she tied her ponytail, buttoned her apron, and showed up. And then she saw it, the little envelope. Miss Sarah, written in red crayon. She opened it slowly, and when she saw Lily's drawing, that tiny handwritten line, "Heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they drink coffee." Her throat tightened. Sarah placed it in her apron pocket, and that day, every time she felt her cheek ache or her confidence falter, she touched that note. It reminded her that someone, even a child, saw her as more than what that man tried to make her feel. That evening, Jack and Lily returned to the diner. Sarah spotted them as soon as they walked in. She smiled, a real smile this time, not the kind she wore for customers. "Hey there, my heroes," she said lightly. Lily giggled. "Daddy says we're not heroes, but I think he's wrong." Jack smirked. "She doesn't let me win arguments anymore." Sarah poured them coffee and chocolate milk. "How's your week been?" she asked. Jack shrugged. "Quiet. That's a good thing." They chatted for a bit, and for the first time in a long while, the diner felt warm again. Laughter mixing with the sound of sizzling bacon and the soft hum of a jukebox playing an old country song. Then the door jingled again. For a moment, Sarah froze, half expecting that man to come back, but it wasn't him. It was a local police officer. "Sarah," he called softly. "We caught the guy. He's being charged with assault." Couple of witnesses came forward. Sarah blinked in surprise. "Witnesses?" The officer smiled. "Yeah, one was your boss. The other was a customer named Jack Miller." She turned to look at Jack, but he was busy sipping his coffee, pretending he didn't hear. "Thank you," she said quietly after the officer left. Jack met her eyes, his voice calm as ever. "Just doing what's right." Weeks passed. The bruise faded, but something else grew in its place. Confidence. Sarah started applying for night school again, something she'd given up when her mom got sick. Jack encouraged her every step of the way, offering to help with paperwork. Sometimes after closing, she'd sit with Jack and Lily, sharing stories. Lily would tell wild tales about dragons and rainbows. Jack would listen quietly, smiling the kind of smile that said, "This is peace." One evening, when the diner was empty, Sarah asked softly, "Jack, why'd you step in that night? You didn't even know me." Jack looked out the window, the rain reflecting memories in his eyes. "In the Marines, we were taught something simple. If you can help, you do. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter where you are. You don't walk away from someone being hurt.